When most people hear about Path of Exile for the first time, they hear things about how complex the game is, and then shortly after, how complicated it is. And for most people coming from ARPGs like Diablo and MMOs like World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy, that's exactly what Path of Exile is. It's complex and can be overwhelming.
Oh, this is the moment everyone stops playing, isn't it? Yeah, this is the moment when you all look and go, you know what? I'm good. I don't fancy learning this.
However, when you break through those initial feelings, you get to experience the core of Path of Exile. When I think about what makes a game good, the first thing that comes to mind is fun. And where does fun come from? Content. Content throughout games can be almost anything. For the Soulsborne games, it's punishingly difficult bosses that push you harder and harder, and when you finally beat that final boss or the hardest boss in the game, it's pure bliss. For MMOs, it's pretty similar. When you kill that final boss of the raids here, you get that same feeling of accomplishment. However, with MMOs, you also have the joy of finding incredibly powerful gear.
Give me the mount, or I'm never streaming again.
And in some, you can also function inside a massive market that is fueled by the player base, to the point where you can have a game almost inside the game with the economies that are created. Moving on to a game like Minecraft, you have the same competitive idea where you're pushing towards a boss. However, you also have the whole sandbox nature of the game. You become the content. Your creativity becomes the content. What makes Path of Exile so great is literally all of these aspects I just mentioned exist inside Path of Exile. Path of Exile at its core is a sandbox ARPG. You can play whatever you want on whatever class you want. The possibilities are endless. Sure, your build might suck, but you can still do it. Path of Exile from the beginning starts as almost a pseudo Soulsborne game. You are traversing an unknown world with challenging bosses, and the character progression is slowly getting more complex and challenging as the campaign builds. Some players find themselves enjoying this part of the game so much that they spend numerous hours min-maxing the leveling process, to the point where they're now speedrunning the leveling process, going 4 or 5 times faster than the normal player.
Sacrifice made? Yeah, it's like a 328, 327.30, Act 10 Katava, and we're ending at like 63, almost 64.
Though the campaign is only one small portion of the total content in this game, you can already see how it compares to other games. You have the competitive racing nature alongside with the challenging boss fights and the ability to find strong items, to the point where you can find items at the end of the campaign that might help you all the way up through the majority of the endgame. The sheer amount of content in this game is almost overwhelming. However, with the sandbox nature of the game, you get to choose the content you want. Choice is king in PoE. There is no illusion of choice in this game. Every decision directly leads to the results you want. Before we talk about the endgame, we need to talk about development cycle. Path of Exile is one of the only free-to-play games that has continuous development. Every 3 to 4 months for the last 8 or so years, they've released a new expansion. These expansions are called challenge leagues, where everyone starts fresh and the whole economy is wiped. These leagues normally have complex mechanics that can range from ways to earn better loot to literally games inside the game. This cycle breeds competition and hype. Every 3 months, you have a new fresh league to look forward to, and if you don't like the league, you only have 3 more months to wait until something new is there for you to experience. As more leagues have been introduced in the game, many of them have become core, basically going to the core of the game. What this does is it allows you to experience new leagues, while also having the old leagues that you loved and spent a ton of time on to also re-experience. And since the league is completely wiped and the economy starts from scratch, you basically have a fresh start every 3 months. This cycle makes it so you always have something to look forward to. Now that we have an understanding of the development in Path of Exile, let's talk about the endgame. With the sandbox nature of Path of Exile, the endgame doesn't have a specific definition. Some players' ideas of the endgame is not leaving their hideouts and crafting some of the most powerful items in the game for players to use. Others will stay in their hideouts and flip items until they can afford an incredibly strong build. These are the crafters and more economic focused players. Then you have the more traditional endgame, maps. Maps are the gateway to challenge and an expression of character progression. Slowly you progress further and further throughout the Atlas until you finally face a pinnacle boss. Killing these bosses for the first time is one of the most satisfying feelings, but it's also not just about killing the boss. Since Path of Exile has a complex economy, these bosses also have some of the most valuable items in the game. They're incredibly rewarding, and that alone incentivizes players to challenge themselves and kill these bosses multiple times.
Nice stream up, Strange.
Let's go! I did it! How it's done! Belt! 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 Belt!
Possible escape? Fuck this kid. I've still never fucking seen one.
Whereas in other ARPGs, many of the final bosses are just target dummies. You get a build that's good enough, you kill the final boss, and you've done it. You've basically beat the game.
Freedom!
Oh my god. I got a mount.
With PoE, the goal is whatever you make it. Some people want a mirror, the most valuable currency item in the game. Some other people want demigods, one of the most prestigious items in the game, obtained from being one of the top players in a race league. Some want to just kill the hardest bosses. Some want to make fun builds and melt the server.
You can vacuum every enemy on the screen into a circle of totems that absolutely shreds everything in the center by exploding over 2,100 times per second, causing both your frame rate and the server's damage calculations to grind to a screeching halt.
A few want to be the deepest delvers. I can continue to go on here, but there's so many goals that exist and so many different ways to beat the game in Path of Exile that I could literally just make a separate video about it. And that's what makes Path of Exile so great. It's a game full of player choice. You can fall in love with one portion of the game or one build and only do that. This is a game that you can start today and find yourself playing years later, still feeling like there's something new and interesting to look forward to. If you ever thought about playing Path of Exile, or if you're motivated from watching this video, I encourage you to give it a shot. It will be hard. You will feel like quitting. But once you push past that, you can unlock the true potential of one of the best games ever made.
I won! Does that mean I win the gauntlet? Wait, does I win? Do I actually win? Is this the best timeline?
Skipping it? Skipping it? Easy. Insane RNG.